Hello, everyone, friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sham Gaffer speaking. I'm an undergraduate petroleum engineering student and also the secretary of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, Syracuse University. In today's webinar, we have Mr. Manpreet. He's an experienced design consultant and a UX strategist. Hello, Mr. Manpreet.
Hello.
We have the honor to host you today. Thank you for giving us some of your time. And for everyone, if you have any questions, please write them down in the chat section below, or if you want to speak them, keep them to the end of the webinar. Mr. Manpreet, the mic is yours, please.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen first. And can you see my screen now?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. Just a minute. Perfect. So a very welcome and very warm welcome to everyone. So I am Manpreet, and today's session I'm very excited to share my knowledge, my experience. So this user experience is a very demanding expertise, demanding, and in today's world, so like everyone is getting onto this user experience. So since the technology is evolving, the customers' expectations is increasing. So everyone is going towards digital, and therefore the need of this user experience is huge. So before I go ahead and talk about what is user experience and different aspects of user experience, so this is me. I'm Manpreet Kalsi, and I'm a user experience design consultant and UX strategist. I have worked with lot of companies, lot of startups, lot of studios, and I've worked on digital uh, products for like B2B products, B2C products, and various mobile app, digital applications. So I've got like good experience in designing for digital space, and these are the links where you can follow me if you're interested in knowing more about me. And so I'll start the session. So today I'll try to cover and talk about one, what user experience is, and then I'll talk about what is it, or like what is the importance, or like why it is very important for one, the businesses, and other, the users. And since everything is changing, since everything is evolving, technology is like changing every day. So there is a need, and why there is a need for that. And then we'll also understand like what is the user experience process, and also understand like what are the different artifacts or different outputs during the process at different stages. So we'll try to understand that. And also we'll understand that if you want to pursue, or like if you get into this user experience design, how can you create very positive, engaging and productive experience. So that is what we'll cover today. And so let's get started. So in today's world, we use a lot of products, be it physical product, digital product. We like some product while we don't like the other ones. So we need to see like why we like that product and why we don't like that product. So there will be some reasons, right? So as a UX designer, our role is to find those reasons and then fix those problems, and then make or improve the experiences. So we see experiences every day, be it product, be it service, or be it digital applications, right? So let's try and understand the user experience with the help of an example. So I've taken the example of a restaurant here. So let's take this example and see what is user experience. So if I talk about restaurant, so just try to remember the last visit that you made to the restaurant, and try to remember like how was it? Was it good? You liked the experience? Were you satisfied with the food, and also and everything related to that? So you can consider these things like when talking about or remembering about that experience. So one, like what was the reason? Like why did you go? What was the occasion? Did you go with your friend? Did you went there with your family or so? So what is the reason? Like why you went? Okay, so that's one point we can consider when we want to understand the experience of this product, that's restaurant that we have taken here. Then what was it like as you walked into the restaurant? How were you greeted? Like were you greeted properly, and smiles were exchanged or not? So how was your first impression? Then how was the entire like ambience there? Was it properly lit, less noisy, and prop seats are arranged properly. So these are different aspects of the restaurant. Similarly, was the food prepared properly? Was it the menu was arranged nicely, written, designed properly? So these are different artifacts, right? And then how was the customer service? If you like, suppose you wanted to change the food, or like you wanted to order something later on, then when did that food come? And also, well, everything was over, like you wanted to make the payment, how easy was it for you to make the payment? So you see, like there are so many small different aspects of the entire journey, customer restaurant journey. So here, like you interacted with a lot of people, the business, the waiter, the food, and so on. So your answers to this, so basically, what was your experience, like whether you liked visiting there, whether we were not happy with few things. So the combined experience of all the emotional highs and lows is basically your experience of that restaurant or from that restaurant, right? So that is one example of understanding restaurant or the user experience through the example of a restaurant. We'll see this in more details, and we'll see like what are the different components here. So this is, you imagine yourself eating some food in restaurant, and then here what happens is you are the user here, like you are there, you came to the restaurant, and then you there to eat something, right? And here you are the user. And who is the business? The restaurant is the business. They are the one who presented or like gave you the food, who's selling the food or running the restaurant. So business is restaurant and you are the user. So basically you two are, there is a need and there is a supply, right? And then what is the product? What is the supply here? The food is the supply, right? So we saw that there are different components. Like one is the end user, that was you, and then the business who is running the restaurant, and then the product, that is the food, right? Apart from that, what we see is the visual presentation. That is basically the food. How was the food served? Was it tasty? And so on. So that is basically the presentation layer. That is basically the visual design, right? And similarly, how easy was it for you to eat? Was the food tasty? Was it nicely cooked? And did you really like it? So this combining everything, like the business need, user need, and the presentation, and whether the food was tasty or not. So everything when combined together makes up the experience. So if you went there, had a good time, and enjoyed the time, and liked the food, if everything went good or if everything was good, you will like that and you will have a good experience, right? So that's basically the combined experience and the satisfaction, the level of satisfaction that you had from the when you visited to the restaurant, right? So this is one example, and here we see like for a good experience there are different components, and we'll go through it more in the next slides. And now that was like a very vague or like a restaurant as example. Now take some digital stuff or physical stuff. So let's take a look at the different example. Here, who is the user? So there are two users here. One is the teacher and the other is the end user. That is basically the student. So we see two users here, right? Who is the business? Business is basically either the software company or the computer or company who's selling the device, or it could be the educational institute, right? So these are the business, and users are basically student and the teacher. Similarly, what is the product? Products are basically the computer, that's the device, and the application like Zoom or some other application. So that's the application, that's the product here. And the design in this case is basically the physical design of the device and also the experience of the application, right? And what is usability? Usability relates to like how nicely the device is, how easy is it for to use the keyboard or mouse and other things. And similarly, how easy it is basically to use that device, be it Zoom or some other device, right? So again, here what we see is like is a combined experience, combined the experience from different entities that makes up the or defines the level of satisfaction, right? So basically what we see is the level of satisfaction the user can have will depend on a lot of things. So right, so different components, different the interactions and so on. So your level of satisfaction could be or can be bad, neutral, or good. And what defines this level? There are different things that defines the level satisfaction. One, so if you're using a product and if you like the product, then the chances are that you will the experience or the satisfaction will be good. And above that, if you understood the product, if suppose you got some product and you try to figure out like, okay, what this product does and like how to use that product, and if you're not successful in that, then you will not like the product, then you, because you fail to understand, right? So basically, one, you need to like the product that you're using, or or you need to understand what the product is all about, and then you should be able to use that product, right? So if you see that in any product, it has these three components, then the product is said to be usable. So the user should like the product, the you should understood the product, and should be able to use the product. So in this case, or in the case of the restaurant, what happened, you went to the restaurant, you liked the restaurant ambience and all, and then when the food came, you tasted the food and you liked the food, and then you were very happy when you left there. So your level of satisfaction was very good there, right? So this is how we define the level of satisfaction. And if suppose you are the UX designer, you are the designer who's designing the entire experience, and if you're able to make your user happy, then that will be the perfect situation. That is basically what business and the user needs. So user wants a perfect solution, perfect experience, and the business wants the customer or the user to be happy. So if you're able to achieve this, that point where both are happy, or you're able to meet the as a UX designer, the user goal and the business goal, then that's the perfect need, or the perfect end goal of the both the entities, right? So so now you saw like how, or what are the feelings, what are the level of satisfaction you have like from different products. So there's a little homework, like when you go back, try to think of few examples from your daily life, and try and see like what is working, what's not working, and what you like about a product or don't like, and then try to write it down somewhere, and be creative, and then start thinking of like what changes can you bring in that product to make it more useful and usable. So this is a small homework. Do that when you are back after this webinar. So we understood basics of what is user experience. Now let's start understanding the definition, and see like what it is all about. So user experience is what is the process. So basically, there is a UX designer who follows a process to create what interactions with what, some digital systems. It could be a mobile app, it could be a web app, B2B app, B2C apps, any kind of app. So it's a digital application or a system, and who is interacting on that device or system? There is an end user. So basically, it's a process of creating user interactions with device or systems that provide what the end result should be. End goal should be like, it should be positive. The experience should be positive, engaging, and productive. So basically, the end user should like the product and it should enjoy the product. So that's the core. That's the most important things. So that's the definition of user experience. Now let's understand in a different way. Like if we put in a different way, so user experience deals with what? One, people. That's the user again. Or in some cases, or not some cases, all cases, it's basically the users, business owners, and also the other stakeholders who are involved in the process. And it deals with what? It's basically everyone who's interacting with the product and the experience that they receive from the interaction. So that's why, like, suppose I bought a product, I started interacting with the product, I like the product. Yes, that means the product has a good user experience. And if I don't like the product, then it means it lacks experience, right? So this is basically user experience. Now let us understand. Okay, so here we have shown the example also. There are two different users here. One, the cashier, like this is a retail shop or a coffee shop, wherein like the end user or the customer is trying to pay the cashier. The cashier using some application. The application, if it has good usability or the product is good, then the cashier will have a good experience. And similarly, the end user, that is the customer, he's trying to make the payment, and if the payment process is simple and easy, then he will also, or she will also, like the entire experience. So this is example. Now that's basically the process, right? The user experience. But what is UXD? So it is basically the process of deliberating perfect or like the engaging experiences. And so basically the user experience is the process of creating, and the designing of that is basically the user experience design, right? So whenever we design any process, or basically product, be it product, service, digital product, physical product, because this user experience is not just limited to the digital creation of digital product, you can use it to in any other industries. So whenever we are designing any kind of experience, we keep customer and user-centric thinking or user centricity in mind in all aspects of design, development, everything. So basically, user is at the key. You try to understand like what is the user need, and then you also try to align the business need with the user needs, and then create the perfect solution. So by understanding what the user needs, you kind of like will, or you'll win the battle, and it will be very easy after that, after you have learned what the user wants, and thereby like after that you will be able to create perfect experience, right? Now we understood the user experience as a digital interaction between user and a product, right? And we are just focusing on the digital product as I said earlier. And when I talk about the digital interaction, we talk about what? One is the digital system, that is the application, usability. So basically, you will hear a lot of this word many times. So basically, usability is whether the system is really usable or not, and the interaction is basically suppose you perform some action on the interface, and whether you got the response back or not. So the interaction should be very meaningful and should be there should be like very intuitive interaction. And then visual design is basically the look and the feel, and then content is basically all the messaging on the application. So when you talk about the product or the digital product to be specific, these are the different items or things that we consider or like take care of when designing the entire user experience, right? So it's basically digital system, usability, interaction, visual design, content, and other things. There are many other things, but these are the core. And when I talk about user experience, there are like a lot of fields, a lot of different skill sets or like roles. So it can start with the research. So you can work as a UX researcher, or you can work as a information architect, like who defines the architecture of the application, or you could only be performing the role of the interaction design. So basically, defining all the interactions on the product. Then there are other fields also who makes use of the user experience designer. That's basically industrial design, service design, information design, like how the information should flow, and then when we talk mostly like with general people, so they consider UX as just visual design, but it's not like that. Visual design is just small part of the user experience. Then there are other things also like branding. So branding also, when we design branding, we also think from the user experience point of view. Technical communication, again, like what kind of communication should go to the user, and be it about the product details also. And similarly, content management system, human factors, usability. So we see that there are a lot of fields, a lot of skill sets, a lot of roles that you can perform in this entire process. So if you like research, you can get into the research and do research for the process and the product. So this is one way of looking at it. If you look at it from a different aspect, so here what we see is like same representation, but in another way. So basically, user experience is at the core, at the center, and it is trying to align or create that sweet spot between the user goals, business goals, interaction, and the content, right? And then around this, a lot of activities happens, but the core is making the perfect alignment. So this is another model or another representation of user experience. So we'll see more detail in the next few slides. And since I'm talking about user experience, we need to understand like who coined this term, who's called as the founding father of user experience. So Don Norman is the one who's created with coining this term user experience and this happened in 1993 when he was working at Apple Computers, right? So we should read about him, his work, his books, and so on. So we'll come to understand and know like how this user experience evolved. And he's currently the director of the design lab at University of California. And his book, The Design of Everyday Things, I would recommend everyone to read this. This talks about regular physical products in a daily from a daily life, and then how whether that's useful or not, and how if they had followed the process of user experience, they would have like created a better product. So you should read about his book. So this is the book, The Design of Everyday Thing. I recommend everyone to read that. Earlier, I pointed this that experience is everywhere, right? Every day we are interacting with so many products and so on. So now, since we are talking more about the digital product, so let's talk about digital product. And in the digital product, we see that all the companies are making use of this process. They're hiring UX professionals to improve the experience of the product. So, and it's not just limited to digital. Digital is like, yes, the everywhere there's a huge demand for digital user experience people, but there are other fields also where this experience process is used. So it's used in the industrial design, digital products, right? And then softwares, like earlier the softwares were mostly developed by like teams who were not doing regular research, and the UX professionals were not involved. But now, in order to design the softwares, user experience professionals are involved. Their services are taken, hired, and then that really helps in defining the right experience and right product. Physical product again, like some physical product or some devices or physical product has really good experience while the other does not. So the companies who create good products, they follow this process, the user experience process, and that's why they're able to create better products. Again, packaging also, and then there are other industries, right? So today, like as of now, when I'm talking, like UX has grown into an important design discipline. So basically, if I talk about like 7 or 8 years ago, people used to, or the professional were called as like web designers and so on, software developers. But now this industry has evolved, and you will see a lot of user experience design schools, like designers, professionals, and a lot of job openings for this particular field, right? So this has grown a lot, and but again, like this is good, like it has grown a lot, but why should we as a designer care about it, or as a business owner care about it? We should care about it because we are creating products for the end user, and user experience process means that we keep the user at the center, and then think about the product, and then think about the experience, and then craft the experience for the user. So basically, we involve the user, we go and talk to them, we understand their challenges, pain points, and then draft the right experience, right? So that's why every company or every designer should learn about it, should use this in order to create better products. And uh, and so when we talk about UX, it is not about just the feelings, like whether this is good or not. It's beyond HCI. So basically, human center interaction. So basically, earlier people used to just talk about the human and the computer's interaction. So, but it's not about that. It's more about the feelings, the understanding, empathizing with the user, and then crafting the solution. So there's a human side to this, and also, since the product will be used by the people, the end users, so that's why you need to understand what is the need and then craft the solution. And since they have a need, the end user, so you should answer or fulfill their need, right? Similarly, UX depends on the context in which the product is used. This is a very important point. Basically, in order to build the product, you need to understand the mental model of the user, like what is his thought process like, and what are his frustrations and goals, and why does he want to use the product, or why is he using the product, and what are his challenges. So you need to understand that to create that perfect product. And it's a process, so it's not something theoretical or like some just theorist stuff. It's basically scientific. It's proven that by following UX process, you can improve the sales, you can improve conversions, you can improve the experiences, the stickiness, and customer loyalty. There's so many things that you can improve by just following the UX process and improving the product. And then people have big expectations, and cross-channel interactions are higher than before. So one, people want a lot from the basically they want more features on the product. So that's why their expectation has increased. And also cross channels. So basically the same user is across different channels using different be it web or tablet or iPad or basically mobile. So he's using different channels, different devices, and you need to meet all his expectations. That's why there is a big need. If you want to get in the user experience design field, you need to understand and cater and meet their needs. Also, a good user experience strengthens brand messaging, drives engagement, and creates brand loyalty. As I said earlier, so if the user likes your product, he'll stick to your product, and therefore there will be like the creation of strong brand. Next, UX increases leads and sales, thereby increase revenue. Better experience means people will stick to you, and more people will come and buy your product. Therefore, at the end result will be increased revenue. So that's why like every business should care about it, and also the designer should use this process because it's your responsibility to improve the product and generate revenue for the company. And just above everything, the good UX or great UX makes things enjoyable. You will like using the product if the product is a good experience. So that's why we should care about the user experience, right? And now, since I'm talking about the user experience, we should understand this honeycomb model. So basically, user experience honeycomb, and it it is very important to understand this, and we can understand this by understanding this points. So basically, your product will have good user experience if it is usable or useful. Let's talk about useful first. So if the user comes to your product and finds it simple and easy to use, the chances are that your product will be liked by the users. Similarly, every need or user comes to a product with a need, and if you're able to fulfill his need, then that's perfect, that's good. And also desirable, the experience, the design, everything should be packaged in a nicer manner, so that people there is people will like to use that product. They should fall, or they should get attracted to the product, right? So it should be desirable. And findable is basically, if the user is there with certain goal, you should fulfill that. And accessible is basically, if the people have some disabilities, you should create solution for them to, or cater the solution for those segment also. And credible is basically your company, or the company who's marketing the product, or bringing the product to the market, should have credibility. And it should not look like some scam or something like that. It should be credible and should come from the right company, right? So that was about what is good user experience, what we should follow, and why should we care about the user experience. But since we want to get into the design, we should also understand what makes bad experience, so that we can avoid this in future, right? So bad experience, what will happen? So it will basically complicate and everything. If people will not be able to use the product, and it will create confusion, frustrations, and people will get angry after using the product. And at the end, what will happen is they will leave your using your product or your product, and they will leave bad reviews about your product. So that's why, as a UX designer, since it's our role and responsibility to create better designs, better experiences, we should learn what we should not do, and we should avoid these things. So these are basically stressful. So basically, whenever you're creating any solutions or design experience, try to you should not make it stressful. You should not feed in a lot of information, or like make the experience complex, or like put a lot of design elements. You should not do that, right? And it should not look ugly. Create a properly well defined structure and nicely looking UIs and so on. So don't make it ugly. It should not be confusing. The experience should be defined. Everything should be like flow in the right way, in the right direction, and it should not be frustrating. It should not be distracting. So basically, if the user is performing certain task on a particular screen, let him perform that task. Don't uh, feed in other stuff in on that particular screen. So don't make things distracting for the user. Inefficient is basically the experience is not right, or only half of the information is provided. Then it doesn't make sense. So people will leave your app. And in order to perform the task, the flow should be simple, and it should not be tedious. So we should avoid making complex experience. And then, yeah, we should avoid unnecessary complexity in the overall design and the experience, right? So we talked about these things. Now we'll talk about understand basically what is the user experience process, and how that evolved over the time, and what we should know in order to improve and create better products. So the evolution of the process. So earlier, like when the softwares are designed, so I'm talking about like 20-25 years ago. So there was no role of designer. So basically they were programmers who used to do everything, and they used to build the product, they used to test the product themselves, and then ship it to the market. So what the end result during that time was not that perfect solution, because the coders or the developers were designing the product, and they themselves were testing and then shipping it to the market, and they were not talking with the customer, they're not understanding the need. So it was all done from their mindset, or like from their point of view. And slowly and gradually, what happened, they realized that programmers can't handle everything. So there later they introduced managers, so that they can control the other operation stuff, and the programmers can just focus on building and testing the products and the softwares. And but later on they realized that no, this is also not working. So what they did, they made programmers just work on the development part, and introduce a new team or skill. That was basically the testers, or the QA people. So now the managers used to control the entire product and processes, and programmers used to build the software, and the QA or the testers used to test the product. And then once everything was done, the programmers used to come to the designers and used to ask them like few design stuff, like basically the primary color of the application, and or the color of the button, design of the button, or basic stuff. And so basically the designer used to come at the last stage, and then after everything was done, they used to ship it to the market. But again, though they were more people or more skills were involved, the products were not that had the best experience. So then they realized that why not bring designers first, and let's see. So basically now what happened, managers used to give the downloads of what the requirement to the designers, and designers used to do uh, all the designs, solutions, and then once everything was approved, it used to go to the programmers, then programmers used to build, and after building, the test and the QA people, they used to do the testing and then ship it to the market. After this, what happened, the product started becoming more useful, better than what it used to be earlier. And so this saw an improvement. And in this process, they understood that, okay, so basically what they need to do is like they need to research first, and then model and basically understand the context, like why they're building that product, then define the requirements, and then create a framework structure, and then refine, and then keep supporting. So basically that is what they started doing. So they were doing or creating better product. But around 10-15 years ago, what happened, so people started focusing more on the users, because they understood the importance of the users and their involvement of the end users, and why they understood like why they should be added, or like involved from the scratch. So that they figure out that if they start involving from the start at the beginning, so what will happen is they will understand, they will know like what they're working on, so they will be able to create better products for them. So this is the process that we generally follow when creating any solutions or product. And it starts with first basically understanding the challenge or the challenge, and then doing the research for that. So basically whenever you're working in a company, what will happen is like your senior or as a working as a freelancer, what will happen, someone will come to you and will give you something, or give you a brief, or like will ask you to design something. So that is after you get the brief and the problem statement, so you'll start doing the research. So that's the first part, basically understanding what you have been asked to do, and then understanding like, okay, so who are the users, what is the business need, and then making the alignment about that, and then following different methods to get insights from the users, doing market study, research. Then if there are any existing products, similar kind of products, you will do comparative analysis, you will try to understand like what the other competitors are doing, and so on. So basically here what you're trying to do is you're trying to understand what is the problem, and then trying to understand what's happening in the current scenario, like, or the current or in the market, and so on, right? And once you have done understood what is the challenge, you will start doing and also like in the first stage you do the research and you get a lot of information, you talk to the user, you talk to the stakeholders, you have some rough notes or video recordings, extra, so many different things. Now in the second stage you have everything, but it's all scattered here and there, it's not in a proper shape. So what you do is in the second stage you present that in the right manner, so it giving it a meaningful shape, right? So that everyone who was not, even those who were not involved in the research, they are able to understand like what happened. So that's the second stage, you're presenting the research, and and then you start analyzing of like what is the actual need, what is the real pain points of the user. And then after that you move on to the third stage, that is basically ideation and design. In this stage what you do is you call everyone together, like be it the your different stakeholders, like marketing people, development guys, or your team members, project managers, QA, and so on. So you call everyone together, then start doing design thinking, brainstorming, and ideating on different solutions. So in this phase or stage, often what happens is like you get like 3-4 different solutions. Okay, like we can go with 1, 2, 3, 4, and then, but by the end of this stage, what you do is you freeze on one solution and then start refining that. And after the third stage, you go on to the fourth stage with that one finalized solution, and then start doing the prototype. So this is the phase where you actually design the solution. Basically, you start doing the wireframe sketches, and then the writing the flow of the journey. Basically, if the person comes on the home screen, then what will happen, and those things, right? So basically, this is where you do all the prototyping. And then once you have the prototyping, you can you move on to the next phase, basically wherein you start testing your product. You go to the user, start testing with them, see like what's working, what's not working, and if you see any problem, or if you get any right feedback, and if there's a need of an improvement, you go back to the design phase, or even to the other phase, research phase, depending upon what is the feedback, and then start improvising or improving the solution. And then after everything is done, you ship the product to the market. So that is the process that we generally follow, right? And there are a lot of things. Don't get afraid by seeing these activities, but I just wanted to show you so that like later on, whenever you see these, you can relate to this, right? So basically, this is the first stage: understanding the challenge and research. So in this case, we do a lot of alignment workshop. We design what is the scope of the work, what is that business wants to achieve, what is the product goal, what are we trying to do with the product, who are our real users. Similarly, in order to get this information, we do a lot of different type of research. That is quantitative research. That is basically you do survey, then data analysis report, market competition, and so on. So just remember that we do some quantitative research wherein we get the results in numbers. And while some other form of research methods are qualitative, this is basically wherein you are personally involved with the users and you talk to them, you get the in verbal, you get all the answers. So you do the interviews, you do focus group. Basically, we'll talk about this later also. And then you try to get user feedback. Empathy map is basically you try to understand the customer's feeling. There are different activities that we do. You don't have to get into details, but yes, we do a lot of activities. And depending upon the scope of the work, we choose one or two from each. Or if you're working on a very complex, then we might go into like multiple methods. Like in a small product, I might just like do the alignment workshop and then do survey and comparative analysis. I might leave other things. And then in the qualitative, I might do like two or three, like interviews, surveys, and that's it. So depending upon like the complexity of the project, if you're working on something that's like for the airlines booking engine, or hospitality, or hospitals medical stuff, so that's a complex product, right? So in that case, a lot of people are involved, and then they do or follow a lot of methods. So this is the first stage, right? So I talked about this qualitative research. Is basically you try to explore the ideas and get the results in numbers. So this is qualitative. So basically you try to talk to the users and get the result in numbers, in words, not numbers, sorry. And you try to basically ask questions, get answers in result in return, and so on. So what are the different methods I talked about earlier? So one is like you interview users, right? Focus groups is basically you call a group of people and then you talk to them on that particular topic and try to get their insights. Ethnography is basically you go and live with the user. You see like if there is a product which is used by the delivery guy, you will go and try to see like how is he using the product when he's working, like when he's on the go, or when he's riding a bike, or something, and how is he using the product, whether the solution that he's currently using is useful, or like what is his problem. So basically understanding his culture and behavior, and then because you by observing you get a lot of insights. And then the last but not the least, this is basically literature review. You read and read a lot about different journals, articles, so that you get better understanding of like what industry or domain you're working for. So basically more insights. This is qualitative. And then the quantitative is basically where you get the results in number. These are different research methods. So what we do is like we conduct surveys, we send the survey links to the users, they respond back, and then we get like, okay, so at 50% like feature one, or need feature one, or 60% want to achieve this particular goal, and so on. So basically you try to ask few questions and get the response. And then experiment is basically by doing variable small changes in some solutions, you try to achieve the or get the insights. And observations is basically again observing subjects in a natural environment where variables cannot be controlled. So basically different methods we follow in this. Now let's go to the second phase. So once you understood, okay, so this is the challenge, this is what we have been asked, and you did all the research. Now you have a lot of data, a lot of notes, a lot of videos, and so on. And then you start giving it a meaningful shape. So this is the second phase wherein you are presenting, that is defining whatever you have understood in phase one. So once you have completed your phase one, you understood, okay, so my vision is this, but the problem statement is this. So now you have the real problem statement. And then you again refine your roadmap, product roadmap, because what you did in the first phase was like a rough draft. Here you get the final shape of like what you really want to achieve. And then whatever findings you did, whatever experiments or methods you used, you then start presenting that in different formats. So there are many things, but we don't use all, but this is just for the info sake. uh, we create persona, we create empathy map, task analysis, definite mental models, pain points, contact. There are a lot of things, but we don't create everything. Okay, so let's see. So this is one empathy map. So this is we generally create. This is basically to understand like what are the feelings of the users. So whether he likes the product, not likes the product, or if he doesn't like the product, then how does he answers, or like what are his frustration points and so on. So see, like it's written, an efficient tool used by designers to understand user behavior. Okay, so basically we are trying to understand what is the user behavior when he's using the product or similar kind of product, and visually communicate the findings to colleagues for a shared understanding of user needs, right? So basically you went, observed the users, and then this is basically a format that you use to communicate like what were your findings. So that's basically empathy map. And we also create personas. Now during the research, what we do is we interview a lot of people. We interview, let's say for example, we interviewed like 150 people, or like interviewed like 50 people or 25 people. So when designing the product, we can't refer to those 50 people, right? So in that case, what we do is we create fictional representation of that user group. So we try to create, understand what were their those groups goals and frustrations or motivations, and then try to represent in this particular format. So this is basically a fictional representation, and this is not the real user, but we try to give this representation a meaningful root or meaningful role or shape. So we try to give it a name, we add image, we try to see like what is his educational background, his objectives, challenges, and so on. So basically we try to present that as this persona or this representation as a real person, right? So this is what we create during the definition stage. We also work on creating like task analysis. Basically, if the user will come on the app, he'll perform this particular task. So that is basically the flow chart that we create, right? And then we also create like what would be the journey of the user. So these are like four very important ones. So that's why I'm presenting this here. So this journey is basically the journey of the user. That is basically before knowing, before the trigger of the need or the product, till the time basically then you bought the product, use the product, and then what happened after the use. So basically understanding the full journey of the user. So this is also we create. And so once you have those representations, what happens? Everything goes to the design team, or the not design team, basically all the internal team, and then they come together and they start ideating on the solution. So they do a lot of things here. So basically, they do storyboarding, they start doing design thinking, brainstorming, and they start crafting solutions. Like, okay, so we can create this solution should work like this. Suppose someone comes up with solution one, the other people might come with solution two, solution three, and then they collaboratively work together and then freeze on or finalize one solution. And once everything is finalized, we go to the next stage. And okay, so this is basically the stage. Okay, so here what we do is like we do storyboarding. Once we have this solution, finalized solution, we start creating storyboard. Like, okay, so if the user comes onto the app, he will first come on the home splash screen. He'll tap on it. He'll go to the dashboard, log in, register, dashboard, and then once he's on the dashboard, he'll perform these tasks. So basically, you're kind of like creating a storyboard, like what sequential event, like what will happen after each. So this is a visual representation, right? And once you're done with this, you also start defining the information architecture, basically the organization of the content, or what should happen, what should be there on the main home page, or what should be there on this product page, and so on. What are the different categories that will show? So that is basically the structure, or the how the information should flow on the product or the website or mobile app. And once you have done that, you start creating use cases and scenarios. Basically, use cases, basically, if the user is not logged in, then what will happen? That is use case one. If the user is logged in, then what should happen? If the user has paid purchased a subscription, then what should be the flow? If the user not purchased a subscription, then how the experience should be. So basically defining all the ifs and buts in this, right? And then once you have done this, you also start giving it a shape. So basically, the user comes onto the dashboard, he clicks on this, goes to that, he clicks on something else, then he goes to some other journey or takes some other journey. So that is basically the route that the user follows. So we do all this thing during these sessions. And once we have clarity of everything, like, okay, so this is what we want to develop, we get into the next stage, and that is basically the prototype. Here, the role of the visual designer comes in. So he takes all the insights, all the learnings from the other stages, and then start creating the design, right? So when we talk about design, people generally refer to visual design. So it's not just visual design, but yes, in this phase, it's mostly the visual and the interaction design that we do. So we create the rough sketches, and then also the rough designs, then hi-fi designs, and then it gets into the development. And once the development is done, it gets shipped. Like, so here we also do the prototyping. So basically, what is prototyping? We'll see that in the next slide. So wireframes or the lo-fi design is what we see here. So this is basically a hi-fi design, but if we can also create wireframe. That is basically we can draw using paper and pencil, or we can also use some software to design the basic wireframes. And then what is presented here is hi-fi designs. That is the final designs, right? And on the right is basically the prototype. That's the working model. Like, it will look like a real app. If you tap on something, the next screen will come. So it will have the complete experience like a real product. So we create that in this phase. That's the fourth stage or fourth phase. And once you have that prototype or the final product, so basically you keep moving from one stage to another after this. So once you have the prototype, you do the test again. So whatever test we followed in the initial stage for the research, we try to repeat that, but this is from a different context, and that was from a different context. That was for understanding what the need was. This is basically testing whether your product is working or not. So you do surveys again, you do different kind of testing. Then you also do like take feedback, usability testing. There are a lot of ways, right? Just knowing this is enough for now. You can learn about this later, but yes, we do qualitative and quantitative research. And we also do market validation. We go to the market, we hire some agency, and they do the testing for a product and the benchmarking report. Like if the conversion on my app is like suppose 1%, while I see that in the market users are conversion rate is like 2. So we try to benchmark that. We try to evaluate our product and so on, right? So this is what we do in the final stage, fifth stage. So these are different methods used for testing. That is moderated testing. Basically, you call the user, you give them some task, and they perform the task. And so there is a moderator there who's there to answer them, right? So this is basically moderated user testing. Sometimes, like what happens, the user is not physically present, so you do unmoderated testing. You send them some questions and tasks, and they perform at their own place. So that is basically unmoderated. Sometimes what you do is unplanned testing. So basically, you don't hire a participant. You just randomly go out and ask people to test your product. That is guerrilla testing. And then we also do control testing. That is basically we call participants or the real users into a lab, and then we record. We give them some task, and then we also record their performances, right? And there are also different tools that we use to like if the application has gone live, people are using the application, then we use some tools like Google Analytics, Optimizely. There are different tools. We use these tools to get insights on like what's happening on the application, right? So we saw that the different process, like what we follow. I hope this is not too heavy for you all, but I just wanted to give insights of like what is the process, and in one presentation, like complete understanding of the process. Okay, so we understood till now the process. Now next is we also need to understand what are the different principles, or like what we should take care of when designing a solution, be it a mobile app. So when you're designing any solution for a mobile app, for example, you should focus on the real users and meet their needs. So every product should meet some need, and it should also focus on business goals, not just the user goals, but also the business goals. And whatever you are creating, back it up with right data. Like use right data to make data informed decisions. Like if you're creating something or putting some module or information on the home screen, like why are you putting that? You should have some data backed up for, or there should be a reason like why you're doing that in design, right? And design for users mental model, this I said earlier also, like you should understand user need, their thought process, their behaviors, and then create the solution. And from the design point of view, create solutions or create designs that is consistent. Don't use different colors for different actions, or for similar type of actions don't use different shape. Like, just should be consistency in designs. And use simple languages when you're copying or putting some copy onto the design, some messages, use very simple language. And you should also have a good understanding of usability and accessibility. There's a difference between the two, you should know that. And always keep less information. Don't over feed the user. Whatever is required, just give that. Don't overdo or overfeed. And then last but not the least, take regular feedback from the users. So talk to them, take feedback from them, understand what is their current problem and what is the current frustrations, what they're not liking, and what they're liking on the app or the product. And by taking these insights, you will understand a lot, and then you can later then improve your product, right? So I talked about the UX process. Apart from that, like there are different companies use different UX process. So these are few of them. So basically, one is called as British Design Council's double diamond process. Other is human centered design, that is basically HCD process. So though they are following different they have different stages, like one is like 4, the other is 3, but the core is same. So basically everywhere they're trying to understand. This is another one. So everywhere what they're trying to do is they're trying to understand what is the problem, who are the users, and then start ideating, doing a lot of design thinking to create the perfect solution. And then they actually develop the solution and ship it to the market. So everyone is doing the same thing. It's just that they're following different steps, different, and they have named it differently, right? And also, like, since we are talking about the UX, we should not confuse UX with UI. So we saw that complex chart in the previous slides. So here, so UX is basically everything. It includes everything, but UI is only a small component, small subset of the entire gamut. So UX starts from the beginning of the, like, from the time like the problem definition was defined, problems was defined, till the time the product was rolled out to the market. But UI is not. UI comes at a later stage. That's basically when we saw it comes at the 4th stage, where you actually prototype, where you actually design. So this is the phase wherein you create the presentation layer, right? Like how the design should be, or what should be the color of the button, what should be the layout, and so on. So this is a small subset of UX. And so when you talk about user experience, it's basically what is the goal, what do you want to achieve, and user interface is basically the layer, what to make, like how to design and all. And user experience is basically all about user and business goals, like what we want to achieve. And UI is basically a design system, what should be the branding, what should be the visual content, should be what, those things. And on the left side, like we talk about user experience, is basically project scope and roadmap, and then process design and testing. On the right, we see is like screen designs and mockups. We do all the screen designs, different screens, be it like if the app has 100 screens, we will design that. And then we also create prototype and all, right? On the left, the tasks were what? Research, personas, user interface, testing. But on the right is basically all about design. So what kind of font, what kind of icon, what kind of images, illustrations, and so on. So that is basically the difference between the two. And you should be clear, like, what is it right different, and should be able to explain that. Now, when we talk about experience, experience is not just one person's responsibility. There are a lot of people, lot of roles, or a lot of skills required to complete or define right experience. So when you're in today's digital world, when you're creating a product or developing a product, you will need one project manager. He should have understanding of like what is the user experience process, then researcher, then business analyst, then information architect. So technology, that's basically developers, product owners, UX designers, visual designers, interaction designer, copywriter. See, so there are a lot of skills. In small companies wherein like the team size is like 4 or 5 people, one person performs multiple roles. Like a person can perform the role of a, in small company, like a project manager, business analyst, user researcher, and information architect, and product owner. He might perform that 5 roles. But and similarly from the design point, the one person could be performing the role of visual designer, interaction designer, or copywriter, and so on. So basically these are different roles. And in big organization, each uh, everyone is there, like, different people are for each roles. And but in small we don't have. But the core is that everyone should have an understanding, and they should be working towards a common goal. that is basically creating better products for the users, right? So these are basically all the team members or the roles of the user experience. And now, since we understood everything, what we saw is like user is the key, and we as the UX designer, we are creating products for the user, right? So in UX, user is the key. That's why it's called as user centered design, so basically user is at the center, and then we design the solution. So that is the key here. And when we are understanding or creating the product, it's always good to understand something about the persons, or basically the human as such, and that's basically small understanding of the human psychology is important, and that really helps creating right products, right? And why this entire UX is so important? Because the future is for the experience. Like, people are changing, people are demanding, people have got high expectations, and companies and businesses are spending a lot of money to get the users, because the competition is so tough, right? So why do we need to be focused, or like learn more about the user experience and be cared about this? Because emerging technologies are driving the world of experience, right? So there are a lot of augmented reality things happening, virtual reality, big data, those things are happening. And everything has become a touch point. Like, if you see, mobile is a touch point, then tablet is a touch point, then kiosk is a touch point, then similarly, like TV is also a touch point. So there are so many different touch points, and it's evolving every day. New is emerging. So you need to define solution for that. So omni-channel experience is very important. And as I said earlier, customer expectations are high, market rules are changing, competition is huge, everyone is investing on user experience. So the demand of the user experience professionals is huge, is going to be huge in future. And also, like, what's happening is personalization is playing big role. Everyone wants the experience to be personalized to him or her. And conversational UI is future, like Siri, Cortana, and so on, Alexa. So conversational UI is the future. So there's a huge demand for conversational user interface designers or experience designers. And big pocket brands are spending heavily to retain users, right? So everyone is like fighting the competition, trying to retain the users, trying to improve the experience. So that's why, like, it's good that if you get into the user experience at the present time, so you will be able to like grow professionally well, right? And what we see is, like, by understanding the emotions, human behaviors, and people motivations, we can significantly impact the success of the products we design and sell. This is, I've already said this many a times, understanding human is very important. Also, what we need to understand is, we talked about that sweet spot between everything: business goals, user goals, technology, and all. So that is basically is possible by following a UX strategy. So UX, we already understood what is UX. Strategy is basically following this strategy. That's basically planning in the right way, thinking in the right way, and then making the perfect alignment between between business vision, user needs, and technical capabilities. So suppose you design something that is out of the box, but if it's technically not feasible, then it won't work. So you have to create that sweet spot and perfectly align the three. And once you're able to achieve that, you will be able to create the better product, and the operation will be smooth, and you will be able to roll out your product in the best way. And how does UX strategy helps? So it basically ensures that business vision, user needs, and technical capabilities are aligned. That's perfect. And helps prioritize our team's attention and resources by keeping them focused on solving the right problems, right? So UX strategy is important. And now we should use this UX strategy and make valuable and meaningful products. Now we know, like, okay, what is the user need, what is the business need, and what can we achieve with the use of technology. And now, since you have the better understanding of, or full understanding of, like, of each, you can create good, valuable, and meaningful products for the users. That's it for the day, guys. So these are few of the books that I recommend everyone to read. So you can note it down, or like right. So these are basically the important books. So first two are basically talks about how to create experience, and you should not create complex experiences for the users. And the other two are basically related to the human psychology, and how understanding human and their behaviors, and how people react differently at different situation. What are the different psychology law? So understanding that really helps. And if you have the right research skills, right understanding of how to use design tools, with the right understanding of human psychology, you can create wonderful products. And these are other books also. So basically about phase, this is very nice. It talks about the interaction design. Similarly, sprint is also good. This is basically how you can create products and solutions or prototype in few days using this methodology. And hooked is basically how to build habit forming products. So basically you want, everybody wants to create products that is very engaging, and that products that user will like. And how can you achieve that? This is basically, this book basically talks about that. So this is hooked. And also like how can you personalize the experience? How can you add gamification to the experience? This you'll learn like when you start working on the real products, but it's always good to read and get the right knowledge, right? That's it, I think. And these are the different platforms where you can follow me. And yeah, I'm open to questions if you have any.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for this great presentation, Mr. Manpreet. It was really insightful and introduced all of us to the user experience world, which seems to be very interesting.
Yeah, I tried covering everything. This was like a too info heavy, but I wanted to give you a like overview of like what actually happens in the UX process, or like when I was working in the real world. So don't get into the details of each, but understanding the process is more important for the time being. And then later on, like when you really get into this, you can start learning about each stage and what happens at each stage. How do you perform? How do you take interviews? Those are you can learn during the time, like over the time, right? But
Yes.
understanding the process and how to build right product or create engaging experiences, that's the core. And understanding or keeping in mind that the user is at the center and like you are developing products for them. So if you're able to like keep those basics right, you can build like right experiences.
Okay, Roger that. We already received a couple of questions. The
Yeah.
first question is saying, Google recently announced they will offer professional certificates with 6 months study. And UX is one of the courses. Do you think it will deserve money?
I don't know how much money they're asking, but we'll have to evaluate that. But if it's coming from Google, I think like it will be meaningful, and basically you need to do research before getting into that, right? Because I don't have complete details, but yes, if it's not that pricey or the price is not that high, you can go ahead and like do it. But do research, do the right evaluation with other design schools also, and then invest money. That's my recommendation.
Okay, let's ask that question in another way. If not Google's, then where? Where should someone learn about UX?
So basically, there are different boot camps. Basically, there's Springboard, there is General Assembly. You can research, you can talk to them, you can get the details about the different courses that they have, and get into the design learning basically.
Okay, I hope that answers his question. We have another one. Can I be a front-end developer and UI or UX designer at the same time?
Yeah, you can. So this basically, I talked about two things. One is the specialist and the other is the generalist, right? So in order to be a good user experience person or a professional, so you need to understand the complete process. So if you're skilled in development, then yes, you should polish that further. You should become an expert in that. But yes, do have understanding of what's happening at the other stages also, and that will really help in meeting the common goal or the or shared goal of the of delivering the right product. So yes.
Okay, another question saying, do I need to have a specific degree to become a UX designer?
Not necessarily. I don't have any degree. So I started as a graphic designer. Like I don't have any degree for graphic design also, nothing. So basically it's all about the skills that you have. If you're good in problem solving, if you're good in thinking process, if you can understand people, if you can empathize their feeling, so it's you can become a very good user experience designer. So you don't need any degree as such.
Okay, and the last question we have for today, are there any software tools or programming languages I should learn, like Photoshop or something?
So that's what I said. Like the user experience is a process. Is basically understanding like what's happening at each stage, understanding the problem and other things. Interaction design or the design is only a small part. That happens at the stage where we are actually designing the solution. So if you want to focus on that and grow in that particular profession or the skills, then you should learn different tools. Like there are different many tools like Sketch, there is Figma, Adobe XD. You can learn one of these, and then later on you can experiment with other tools also if you want to seriously get into design. But understanding the process is the most important thing.
Yeah, I think that's it for today. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Manpreet, for spending your time with us. And I'd like to thank everyone who attended the webinar. And I hope it was as you expected, and now you know something and about user experience or UI design. Thank you one more time, Mr. Manpreet.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
I hope we have some more future cooperations.
Sure, please. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
Thank you so much.